Hi, this is another AutoCAD tutorial looking specifically at controlling the UCS and orientating yourself around a simple shape. So I'm going to start off, I'm going to keep the grid on in this view and having a look at the object snaps. Don't need many here. Endpoint primarily, and we'll use a midpoint later on, but just endpoint will do for this. Okay, so we'll start off with a rectangle. So that's REC and return, and we'll just kick off anywhere. So pick a base point for the rectangle, and then in relation to that point we'll go at 4,000, 6,000. Okay, so it's a fairly big chunk here. What we'll do now is flip around using the orbit command. So just to recap here though, I'm in the 3D modeling workspace, so change your workspace selector to 3D modeling. Okay, orbit, let's turn around. You can use shift and your middle mouse button to do the same. Always used to crash AutoCAD 2011 and 12, but it seems a bit more stable in 2013. Okay, and then we'll extrude that shape, so EXT, return, grab the edge of the rectangle, return, and let's stretch it up, let's extrude it upwards by 3,000. Okay, now we're going to try and model a pretty basic kind of cockpit shape, you know, like the bit that closes over a cockpit, kind of spaceship type looking thing. So just a muckabout kind of shape. So what I want to do is set up this shape, but drawing on the side of this block. Now, because I started off with a rectangle orientated like this, I could use the standard UCSs that come with the software. Okay, so when we're in the standard orientation, we're in the world coordinate system. So it says world here, and there's a little square at the center of the three axes. That's the only time you'll see the square, is when you're in the WCS, in the world coordinate system. So I want to look at this side of the cube. Okay, so what I can do is change to the right UCS. Okay, I'm keeping the grid on just so you can see it flips around to suit. And we'll draw a triangle on the side of this shape. So remember, if we're going to extrude, then it has to be a closed shape. So I'll draw the triangle using a polyline. So the command is PL and return. First corner, second corner, third corner, and then close. So C and return. Okay, just hover over your shape, make sure it's closed, and then we'll extrude that. So EXT, return, click this triangle and return. And the extrusion always operates in the kind of the Z direction of the shape that you're dealing with. You know, it's the Z direction when the object was drawn. That's important. Okay, we're going to keep the original cube just for now because it helps us with a bit of setting out later on. Okay, so that's the kind of the rough shape. Now what we'll do is we'll kind of slice off the top here. We'll kind of level off the top. So to do that, I want to create a shape in this side, which is the front coordinate system, and then extrude it so that it can then chop through the top of the object. So we'll change now from the right UCS to the front UCS, and always make sure that this does react, otherwise you're not going to get very far. Okay, so I'll start another rectangle to REC, return. I'm going to start here, and then in relation to that point I'm going to go at 4,000, so it's the width of the block, comma, that's a point, isn't it, comma, minus 1,000, and return. Okay, so there's the rectangle I've just drawn. Let's extrude that back to the back face of the cube, and then we can subtract from the wedge, return, pick the new shape, and return. That's just going to slice it off. So it's starting to look a bit like one of those kind of sloped side Lego blocks that you get. Now ultimately there wants to be a window on the top face here, and what we'll do is we'll just set out a rectangle right now because we're going to start chopping into this shape, and I want to kind of do the rectangle while it's in its kind of biggest form. Now I want the rectangle to be drawn on that actual surface. So none of these standard UCSs will let me do that. Okay, these are basically just looking at the sides, top and bottom of a cubic shape. So instead, what I need to use is a 3-point UCS. Okay, so you click the 3-point. Okay, and it's asking me firstly, where do I want the origin to be? So logically, you would place it here. Okay, then it says which direction is X going to run. So this is where you can decide, and there's actually two answers to this. It will give us effectively the same end result, but you know, X at the moment is running this way, so let's keep it going that way. So pick here, and then it says give me a positive position in the Y direction. So that would be somewhere up this line. Okay, it has to be that line. You wouldn't pick back here because that would twist the coordinate system into the object. It's got to be related to that plane. Okay, you could choose there, it would give you the same result, or a midpoint here, midpoint there, would give you the same, but this is the simple one, the obvious one to pick. Okay, so notice the grid aligns itself now with that top sloping face of the wedge. Okay, getting a tiny bit closer, and then another rectangle, so REC, return, and we'll start the rectangle in this bottom corner, and we'll just make a square window first. So at 2000, 2000, and return. And I want to place that in the middle of that shape. So because it's 4000 millimeters across here, I can use midpoint here to endpoint there. So move, so M, return, pick the rectangle and return. The base point wants to be midpoint, and I've not got that active on my object snaps, so you hold shift and right click your mouse. Get midpoint for a single use only. I'm going from midpoint here to endpoint there. So it's halfway along. Now I want to move it half the way up here as well. So let's find out where that is. So because my coordinate system is defining, you know, my work plane, I can just use a line command here. I can safely use a line. So L, return, and I want midpoint again, so it's shift and right click your mouse, get midpoint, and I want to go perpendicular to this line, so shift and right click again, perpendicular. Hover just here, the perpendicular UCS, sorry, the perpendicular object snap marker appears above. Select and return. So I've now got a point that I can move this object to. So it's M, return, pick here and return. The base point would be midpoint, so shift and right click your mouse, get midpoint, midpoint there to end point there. That was a nice round number, 4000. This would be a very nasty number. It's the distance on the kind of hypotenuse of that triangle, but then it was chopped off. So I haven't got a clue what length that is. I'm just going to actually ask it. So I use the distance command, and I bet it's a horrible number. So endpoint to endpoint. Yeah, yuck. Could be recurring. You wouldn't be sure. And that's why we use, you know, draw your geometry. Don't try and use a calculator and work it out. So click that line and delete it. That's gone. Okay, so it's starting to take shape now. What I want to do now is kind of shave off the sides here. I want to sculpt the sides a wee bit. Okay, this shape started life as a triangle here, so if I click on it, you can see there's nothing I can drag. I can't really manipulate that shape anymore. It's been disturbed too much. So what we'll do is we'll go back to the front coordinate system and draw a couple of triangles that we can pull forward and use to chop off the shape. Okay, so I'll go to the front UCS. Now, just before I do that, you know, if I wanted to use that UCS again, I could save it. Now, that doesn't come up here automatically. Okay, you see, there's not even a save command here at all. So what you have to do is go through the UCS command. So let's just go through this just to do it. So UCS return, and it's not even listed here. I don't know where they hide it now, but then it's S for save. So S return, and we could call this, what would we call it? Let's call it slope, for want of a better word. So I'll call it slope and return, and that now becomes a UCS that I could come back to later on. So let's just use an example. Let's go back to the world coordinate system, and then say, oh, I forgot something. I want to go back to the slope. So you see here at the bottom, the named ones appear at the bottom, and it's back to that slope. So sometimes creating the UCS can be fairly tricky, and being able to save it and come back to it is very handy. So I said we were going to work on the front coordinate system. Okay, and I want to draw a triangle. A bit difficult to judge where the triangles go if I stayed in a 3D view. So if I want to see the actual view on this UCS, you type plan and return twice. Okay, and now I can draw a triangle using a polyline. I'm going to go from endpoint here. This could be front or back, it wouldn't matter. To endpoint there, and then I'm going to go to nearest. So type in, hold shift and right click your mouse and get the nearest object snap. So let's go near to here. Okay, this is just a sketch. Just want to make sure that I don't go too far, or I might slice off the window. So I'm not going to go too far along. About there, kind of roughly in line with the window should do. Okay, then press the letter C to close the shape. So C and return. Okay, then let's mirror that. So MI, return. Pick the triangle and return. The axis wants to be midpoint, so it's shift and right click your mouse, get midpoint. I should have left midpoint on the object snap, shouldn't I? Okay, and then put ortho on so we get it square. Select, return. Okay, let's jump back to a 3D view using orbit. Okay, it's put the triangles at the front here. That's okay. Wouldn't matter if it's front or back. Then we EXT, return. So we're making a couple of cookie cutters here. Select the objects, return. Drag them to the back of the main block. Okay, main block's done its job now. That can go in the bin. Let's just shade it, see what it looks like. Okay, so we've got our two cutters ready to use. And then we want to subtract from the main shape, return, pick the two smaller shapes, return. So it's looking a bit more cockpit-like now, isn't it? Right, it's a solid lump at the moment. You know, the cockpit would be hollow, and this would just be a shell. So if you go to your solids ribbon, you'll find the shell command. Then click shell. You select the solid and return. And then it's asking me for a distance for the shelling. This is going to go, if I use a positive number, it'll go in the way. If I use a negative number, it'll go out the way. Okay, so the shell distance, I'll use 150 and return. Okay, so it comes in the way by 150. Okay, so it's hollow inside, but it's trapped because we haven't shaved off the top, the bottom or the back. Okay, and what we can do for this is use the slice command, which is just here, a little knife and a slab of butter. Okay, now I'm in the front UCS, so this is a bit tricky because it uses, there's multiple ways of doing slice, but it can be a bit tricky to get it to work. So I'm going to use the XY method. So pick slice, pick the solid, return, and you'll see there's quite a few ways of doing this. I'm going to go for XY. I find this one the easiest one to do. So what it'll do is it will ask me for a plane to use as a slicing plane, and then say which side do I want to keep. So XY return, I want to slice in this plane, so I'm picking 1, 2, and then the desired side to keep is this side. Notice it chops off everything beyond the line that I picked originally. Let's just check that it has actually done that and that it's now hollow inside. So I've turned it around, shade with edges. Yeah, we're hollow, we can see inside. Okay, exit that, 2D wireframe. I'm going to put the UCS back to normal. So I can do that from here. I don't have to go back to home and the UCS command here. I can just type in UCS and return twice. Okay, then we're slicing again. Pick the solid, return. X, Y, return. Pick 1, 2. I want to keep this side. The bottom gets shaved off. Just check that you've done it correctly. Cool, nice and quick. And exit. And that's just a bit simpler to do than trying to shave off the sides yourself. So we shell it and then slice. So 2D wireframe again, and then we can deal with the windows here. So what I want to do is put in a couple of windows on the side that are effectively the same height as this one. Okay, so it's a bit tricky because how do you establish a point from here over to here that stays at the right height? It's quite difficult. Okay, so firstly we set we'll try and establish the heights. So I think the right UCS would probably be the easiest to work on. So we'll use the menu for this. So change to the right UCS. Okay, draw a line up the edge of the object. Okay, the line's happy to drop from front to back, it doesn't matter. But now use a polyline from the corner of the window. And this won't change its Z coordinate. It will stay in line from where we pick. So I'll take a polyline there and a second polyline across here. Okay, so we've got a line there that can be trimmed by these two polylines. Even though they're at a different depth, they're further back than this line. So let's just change the color of this line so we can see what happens. So CH, I'll bring the properties tab in so we can see it, and I'll change its color to magenta so we can see it on top. Okay, and then you're trimming, so TR, return. Pick these two as cutters and return, and they're quite happy to chop that line in these two positions. So that top of that is in the same height as that, bottom of that is in the same height as that. Okay, no need to do anything clever there, so take these two away. Okay, and now I want to set my coordinate system to be the same as this side of the model. So this is where the 3-point comes in, because remember that face is sloping backwards. So it's a 3-point UCS, origin point here, X direction this way, Y direction could be either this point or this point. Okay, doesn't twist it over because you've defined which way X is going, so Y can't rotate it. Okay, let's just copy this in the way. Okay, I'm going to bring it in by 300, and then I'm going to offset it by another 300, and just keep offsetting actually. Okay, so that will be my first window, this will be my second window. Okay, I'll delete that original line, and then I'm going to place rectangles on these so that it will be able to be extruded. So rectangle, rectangle. Okay, underneath there are the lines, so I want to erase those. So a simple way to do this, because they're covered with newer objects, is just pick all of them, use a blue window for that, hold shift, click once, return. That's taken away the lines underneath. Now what I'll do actually is just move these in a bit further. So I'm just going to pick them up and go from end point to end point. It just looks a bit more comfortable, a bit more material around the object. Okay, so we can either flip these over to the other side and extrude them then, or extrude them now and then flip them over. But when we do the undo, the UCS wants to be back at the world, so remember that you can do either world here or type UCS and return twice. So if I extrude these, they will go in the direction, in the Z direction, in the UCS in which they were drawn. Okay, so extrude them, pick 1, 2, 3 and return, and you can see that they're going in the correct direction. It's related to the UCS in which they were drawn. Okay, and let's go a bit thicker than the shelling just to make sure they do go through. So if I extrude by -250, they've gone inside the object. If I just show you that, and shaded, there they are. The objects are ready to cut through. Let's go back and 2D wireframe. Now if I subtract those now, I can't use them on the other side, so I need to mirror them first. So MI, return, hold shift and right click your mouse, get midpoint. I haven't selected any objects, have I? Let's start again. So MI, return, pick the objects first and return, then shift and right click your mouse to get midpoint. Okay, notice the UCS icons hovering below the line because it's dropping to level 0. Okay, click and drag to the back, ortho's on. We don't want to lose the original, so press return, and then you can do your subtraction. So we're subtracting from the big shape, return, then pick the 5 cutters and return. Let's just have a look what it looks like. Looking good. Right, let's make a little tweak to these openings. Let's smooth them off a wee bit. And to do that, if you go to the solid ribbon and we want to chamfer the edges, we've got 2 choices, either a rolled edge or a straight edge. So chamfer, I'll use a straight because they're just a bit more predictable. It's asking me for some distances here. So I need to type D and return so I can set my own distances, and I'm going to go for 50 millimeters. Okay, so it's 50 millimeters distance 1 and 50 for distance 2. Okay, now it's expecting me to pick edges. Bit brave doing this in a shaded view, but it should work. Okay, I'm just going to go for the ones that are going to be obvious. So I'm just picking those 3 just now and return. Okay, second return finishes the command. So that's looking quite neat. What would be better to do is to do this in a 2D wireframe view. Okay, I get the chamfer edge. Pick, 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 pick. I'm just going to do all of them. It's not letting me go to this one. So let's just finalize these ones first. So return, return again. Chamfer edge, chamfer edge. We'll deal with this opening. Return, return. Let's spin round and deal with this side. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and return. Final return. Let's shade that. Looking neat. Very quick. Not very editable, but it's extremely quick to do. Simpler to do that afterwards than try and create the shape that would cut out in that same form. So we want to add a bit of glass now to this, so as if they had windows. So I need a new layer. Layers dialog is ridiculously big. Okay, bring it down. Okay, a new layer. Let's call it glass. Make it cyan colored so we can see it. Make it current and close. And then 3D face this time, so 3F. So I'm not putting this in as a solid. And we'll put it where the chamfer finishes. I'll just draw these in, it's just as quick enough to draw the 5 of them in. So 3D face requires 4 picks and you don't come back to where you start. That one's a trickier one. Better make sure I get this one right. That was lucky. Probably would have been better to rotate a bit before I tried that. So let's make it fairly steep so I can see. And then the final windows on this side. 3F, return. 1, 2, 3, 4. Return, return. 1, 2, 3, 4. Return to finish. Let's shade that. Okay, looks good. Now you can do some pretty clever things with 3D with AutoCAD now. If I go to the meshes ribbon instead, and let's smooth the object. Let's see what happens here. This will look quite good. So pick on the object and return. I'm getting a warning saying, hold on, this isn't a mesh object, it's a solid. That's okay. Convert it to a mesh. So looks pretty freaky there. Okay, but you get the idea. Okay, exit that, and I can smooth it more, and this will start to make it look much more engineered. Okay, click it and return. Return to bring back the command. Just keep smoothing it, and eventually you get to a limit. So it'll probably say it won't let me go any further than this. So let's try one more smooth. That's it. They've reached its kind of limit of smoothing, but pretty funky, you know. Very little time to create that. Looks absolutely brilliant. Different shading mode, X-ray. You can still see it didn't do anything with the glass because that starts off. It wasn't a solid. It couldn't be changed anyway. But it's kept generally the surfaces in the right place, so that the glass isn't kind of poking out. It's kept the kind of relationships correct. So, pretty cool. Okay, hope that's. If you practice that, you'll kind of get your head around how UCS's work. And we'll stop just there.